Is there a big idea lying dormant inside of your business? And if there is a big idea, do you know where to find it and how to find it and how to empower your employees to bring those big ideas to you? Well, today I'm joined by Melanie Rae with Plan with Peers. Melanie, thanks for joining the show.
Thank you so much, Tim, for inviting me. We go way back.
We go way back. I'm excited to talk about this topic of entrepreneurship and how to find these big ideas inside of organizations. But before we get there, maybe you could share a little bit about who you are and some of your background.
I'd love to do that. I'm Melanie Rae, the founder of Plan with Peers. We believe in info and introductions to equip vendors, diverse vendors, as well as corporate employees with information and then introductions so they can make their big ideas happen. I have been an instructional designer for more than 20 years, creating the guided business plan training platform. And I'm just excited to launch Plan with Peers to really help corporations bring their employees together to share ideas that will help the company save money, save time.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that intro. We're talking about intrapreneurship, and there are plenty of folks out there that maybe have heard the term but don't really know what it means. We've all heard entrepreneurship. You know, we think about business owners with these big ideas and Shark Tank and things of that nature. But what is the big difference between entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship?
The big difference is really who you report to. So intrapreneurship is still within a large corporation, but having the autonomy to think like an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur is somebody that has that vision. They can see it. Other people may not quite see it yet, but they see it and they're creating a path toward it. I think another benefit of intrapreneurship is often access to resources. You have that brand behind you and that opens doors, whereas an entrepreneur is still building that brand up depending on where they are. And I think that's a huge difference.
So
Resources and who you report to.
resources and who you report to. So some organizations are just naturally built for entrepreneurship. But if you think of a company like 3M, a very innovative company, always coming up with new ideas and things of that nature. Some companies are not built naturally for entrepreneurship. They're not as, let's say, slick with coming up with all these cool creative ideas. What is your recommendation to a large organization that has an inclination or desire to get into it, but they just don't know where to get started or how to get started?
There's two things that came up. So one is in terms of a company being slick to have entrepreneurship, it really depends on the individual and the freedom that they're given. So, and a company could be very structured, but they can give their employees the freedom to say, tell us your ideas and tell us, to encourage that kind of innovation sharing.
Yeah. So how do you recommend an organization that might be, let's say, a little more old school,
Hmm.
uh, step into the arena of entrepreneurship? If you think about companies that are potentially more legacy related, a little more outdated, like healthcare, insurance companies, the old guard of finance, many of them could benefit greatly from having entrepreneurship programs built inside of them, but that's just not a muscle that they've exercised. What is your recommendation for them getting into this?
Well, I think one of the best examples of an old legacy company that used entrepreneurship to find or intrapreneurship to find their billion-dollar brand is PepsiCo. I refer to this story often, and this is the story of Pepsi's CEO asking their employees to say, we need help. We need advice from all levels of the organization, or else we are not going to be able to survive in our current form. The CEO put that call out via VHS. And I'm not sure if you remember the days of rolling in the TV into the lunchroom. So somebody saw that message, and it was a janitor, a maintenance worker, who had been at the company for several years and was like, you know what? He's asking me. He saw that person looking into him, his eyes through that video saying, he's asking me, I'm going to share an idea. And what came out of it was a flaming hot brand, a billion-dollar brand. So for any legacy company, one of the things they can do is to say, we want to hear your ideas. There are some organizations where there are so many levels. If you have a 200,000 employee company, you have to have structure. You have to have the people reporting in and out. But often there's that fear of losing your job or being that person that makes that wrong decision or brings up that bad idea. So a lot of times people don't speak up because there are so many layers that they may have to go to. Imagine if you had an idea, but you had to convince 7 people that all they have to do is to share the idea with the person who can say yes or no, who can green light it. I mean, that can be very terrifying is the word that comes to mind, but also if you're worried about your job and worried about the ramifications from it, a lot of times people don't do it. So now imagine if you have a team leader, starting just with that team leader person, saying, we are going to meet once a month, and I want to hear the best ideas pitched in 60 seconds. It can be on this topic. I mean, it's better to, instead of just saying on anything, have it be something specific. And once they do that, then you're now encouraging people to think of, to one, observe what's around them, and to say, okay, I think we can do this better. And then to now be able to position it in a very structured manner, as opposed to saying, I think everyone should have Fridays off every week. You know,
Right.
instead, if you were to position that to say, let's rotate and have Fridays off for this group of people, and then it ends up being you know, everyone has, not everyone, but somebody is taking the day off on Friday, but not everyone. So it's still productive. So you are putting it in context of how it can benefit the company.
We want to foster cultures of innovation. Some organizations have internal politics. I would say most organizations have internal politics. You mentioned some people are afraid of losing their jobs a little earlier about bringing up these ideas. How can companies foster this innovative spirit better inside of their organizations? What have you seen? I know you mentioned the flaming hot Cheeto, but are there other examples?
A way to foster innovation within the company is, one, to allow people to bring their innovative ideas forward. So the suggestion box has been around forever, but now let's create the suggestion box 2.0, where it's actually structured. It's saying, okay, let's have these Shark Tank style forums, since a lot of people are aware of that show. It's been on for years. Let's have these forums where you come forward and you pitch your ideas. So the question to you is, how do you foster that? It starts really at the top, because if the C-suite now tells the managers to say, allow this to happen, then you're going to have more people coming forward. And then to allow it to happen in a structured way, so where it's not wasting time, where it actually is helping out with cost discovery, then, I mean, that is going to prompt more people to want to do it. So for example, Tim, let's think about this. If you have 5 people that come forward and they come up with an idea that will save that team, again, we want to start at the smaller level, save the team 10 hours a week of doing X, Y, Z. That is going to get around. And then so the next manager is going to be like, okay, let me ask my people, what ideas do they have? And so ideally, if you have this promoted within the intranet, then that's another way to get it going. So yes, it just takes the top to say, okay, we're on company time, we're willing to allow these kind of forums to happen, but we want to hear what works really well and let everyone know about it, so then that way more ideas can come forward.
Got it. Now, is entrepreneurship purely about the external facing innovations like product and service innovations, or can it also be about process improvement innovations, cost cutting opportunities? What's your take on that?
Everything is up for grabs with this one. All right, so let's just choose one example. I love doing impromptu. So one of the things you just said, let's choose an example of what that could be.
Okay, so let's say we're talking about process, and let's say we're a
Improvement.
professional services firm, and let's say we discover it takes 10 steps to deliver a result. I think that we can cut those steps from 10 to 5, but I don't know how to get my ideas across.
Okay.
How do
So
we do
what you
this?
want to do, Mr. Martinez, is you are the employee, and you're
Yes.
looking at you see something, but you don't quite have the words in terms of how to put it together. So what you want to do is, first, you want to make the observation. You already know that something like this is occurring, that it can be improved. Take the time to make the observations. Document, what does that look like? What are you currently doing? So that way you can have that baseline, the before. Second, research. Find out who's doing something similar in this space. So let's say process improvement. Give me the name of a department. What's the department?
Let's say account services.
Okay, account services, one of those ones that people don't quite know what they do. But account service,
Client management or
client
account
management.
managers.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they're the ones that are responsible for keeping the client happy, making sure
Yeah.
that they're there available to answer the questions that they may have. So they may say, okay, that I, as a member of the client management account services team, have observed that it takes X amount of time to get back to our client. And so they are observing it. And so then now they want to do some research online to say, okay, who is the best, what company is known for being able to have the top customer service, right? Zappos, we know for shoes and products and e-commerce, they were one of the top ones. So they want to research this person, find out who else is doing really well in the client management space. And then they can bring that back, that research. And now they have the observation, the baseline. And then they have the research to prove this is who else is doing it. The next step is to figure out this is what we can do differently. Because what this company is doing really well, what they have may not apply to the current company, you know. So you've got your observation, you've got your research, and then your kind of your action steps, what you can recommend. And then that's it. So anyone can really take that approach, regardless of what department they're in or what their job function is, and then present it. The key, though, is to present it and to present it in a way that really speaks to your listener, you know, where they are. And you don't want to catch them when they're running out. I always tell my friend that don't go for surgery on Friday afternoon, because you know they're thinking about something
Right. Thinking about fishing.
else. So, you know, those are kind of things that you want to think about when you're pitching your idea, but the overall concept is to invite employees to share their ideas. And what I thought was interesting as I'm looking more into corporate entrepreneurship is finding out companies that are already doing this. So Microsoft has corporate entrepreneurship. Talk about a legacy company. You know, they're part of the tech industry, and so they often are known for, you know, coming up with, you know, unique ideas and stuff like that. But they have a program now, corporate entrepreneurship, where it is asking employees to come forward.
Yeah, you know, I think one of the fears as an employee in a larger organization, we're talking much larger, 200,000 employees, 10,000, I mean, anything where you start getting into the thousands is, you know, I have a big idea, but how does this get implemented? It almost becomes like trying to eat the elephant in one bite, right? Where you might have something like a flaming hot Cheetos, but you're inside of Pepsi and you say, this is such a big idea. It feels a little unreal or unfeasible that this would actually get implemented in such a massive, large organization. And I feel because things are so big sometimes that employees may not bring those ideas to the forefront because they just feel like it's going to fall on deaf ears.
Two things come to mind. One is build the schoolhouse before building the university. And unfortunately, I've been trying to build the university from the get-go as opposed to schoolhouse. So what that means is start small. You start with one little school building and you get students to come to it. And then as it gets successful, you start adding more classes, adding more teachers, adding more students. So for whatever option that you're trying to go for with your idea, start locally. You know,
Okay.
what does that, how does that impact a small audience? So I'm definitely comfortable with putting my big ideas out there. So I met with somebody in the federal government who worked in the Small Business Administration, and we were attending a conference together. And I was saying, you know, I think that we should have a day where neighborhood businesses are supported by their neighbors, where the neighbors volunteer and help them improve their facades, the street, their storefronts. You know, so because if a neighborhood looks better, you know, it's more inviting, then that's going to increase the number of traffic and customers and all that. And so they're like, that's a great idea, but we don't do those kind of ideas at our level. It has to start locally. So if you can get somebody else to embrace it, and then, you know, other people embrace that model, then we'll come by and support it.
Yeah, it's almost like the small wins stack up to the big wins, and also the small wins gives everyone inside of the organization an opportunity to see that something's actually working. Because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, with entrepreneurship, building momentum is a core component of getting this to actually work inside of the business.
That's a key word, momentum.
Yeah, momentum.
Well, and maybe let's say momentum for those big ideas. But if you're talking about at the team level, where it's just a matter of, you know, we take too much time to do this, we can make this switch in 2 weeks. You know, I mean, yeah, or 2 days. You don't necessarily have the momentum, but you have to have an ear for that. And I think another thing about corporate entrepreneurship is making sure that managers are hearing the fact that they should listen. You know, some people are there's just so much to do as a manager when you're trying to do your own job and then also manage other people, that they may be worried as well about, what their thought about if they bring this idea forward. So if you have the upper level saying it doesn't matter, no repercussions here, let's just share the ideas. We're not going to implement them all, but we want to hear them all so we know what we're working with.
Right. And there's a lot of value in getting the information from your existing team.
Hmm.
Whereas as a longtime management consultant, you get hired to go into an organization that you know nothing about, really. I might know about the industry, but I'm learning in real time about the politics, about the individuals, about their current challenges. And then as a complete outsider, you're bringing a third party perspective, which has a ton of value because I might speak to 100 other companies in a given year in that same industry and bring those ideas and insights. But there is also immense value from inside of the organization where people
Hmm.
are doing the day-to-day activities and they can see it. It's almost right in front of their face. And sometimes I feel like these big ideas are hiding in plain sight. So would you say that one of the values of going down this rabbit hole of entrepreneurship is finding those latent potential ideas from the employees themselves versus looking externally?
Oh yeah, imagine how much money could be saved by that. Like
Sure.
so you've got these outside consultants coming in and they're sharing what everyone else is doing. But then you have the people on the front line who are saying that I know this could be different. So this whole corporate entrepreneurship is asking those timid people who are in the cubicle sitting there looking and observing them. I cannot.
Right.
You're
Right.
asking them to come forward in a way that feels comfortable for them to.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So let's talk about pitching. Let's talk about pitching ideas because this is a big part of what we're talking about and how to get things across the line. I mean, you can have the world's best idea, but if you don't know how to effectively communicate that to a stakeholder and get them to buy in, then it's going to die. So not everyone is a natural born salesperson. Not everyone has spent years in the field pitching and presenting ideas and even scoping an idea and thinking about an idea and getting it on a platter that can then be presented. Some people have just done their one job, like the janitor, right, in your flaming hot Cheetos example. So how do we get people upskilled, if you will, if we can use that term, in the arena of taking their idea and presenting it and getting it in a way that can get across and actually get the yes?
Well, one of the things is to get comfortable with the idea.
Hmm.
So that was the first part that you mentioned is, the three steps that we mentioned, and I just came up with that too in terms of the three steps: observation, um, what do we say? Observation, research, and then the action plan. I didn't come up with the concept, but in terms of phrasing it this way. So you have that. So now you're comfortable with your idea. How do you present it? I was president of our Toastmasters, our corporate Toastmasters club for 3 years. And and also as a trainer, I've done more than 1,100 classes. So I've got a unique perspective in terms of my comfort level in terms of the
Mhm.
group, but a lot of people are not. And so even going through Toastmasters, which again is a long stretch in terms of being able to go through all the activities that they have planned, you have to just be able to feel comfortable with your idea. Once you have that, 60 seconds goes by really fast. And so to be able to present that idea is having the right audience. Who is your listener? What do they need at this moment? Why would they care? Once you have that, and then you've got your solid presentation, it should be a lot easier to make the presentation. So I'm trying to think of an example, Tim, for us to go through right now. Let's say, give me the name of a worker, a job title.
A job title. Okay.
Mhm.
VP of operations.
Okay, so somebody who already has some power. All right. And what department are they working with?
Say they're working with the finance department.
Okay. So VP of operations, who is working with the finance department. So the VP of operations wants the finance department to give them money. They want, in corporate speak, I need budget. I need a budget to do X, Y, Z. Right. So they want to present their idea to the CFO to say, I need funding for this project. All right, so first of all, they're going to identify their observation, research, and then action plan for whatever their idea is. We're not going to go through that right now. But in terms of presenting it to the CFO, they want to know who are the other stakeholders that the CFO has to report to. So that's kind of painting the frame of mind for their listener. So again, whoever that listener is, what are their, who do they have to report to? What are their intentions? What do they want from it? How does it help them make money, save money, make time, make money? So I'll just say that one again. So save money, make money, or save time. So we've got the VP of operations that wants to talk to the CFO. So the CFO stakeholders are their managers, which is probably the CEO, possibly stockholders, you know, depending on the size of the company, the community, who they have to report to, customers. Okay. So knowing who the CFO has to take into consideration when they're going to say yes or no, that's going to help the VP of operations position their idea. So we came to this part because we were talking about how do you present your idea? How do you get comfortable presenting your idea? And one is to know who your listener is and to know what the problem/solution is that you're providing. If you're comfortable and confident in that, it's so much easier to go into the room.
Right. And you don't need to be the polished, slick New York three-piece suit madman guy. You just have to be passionate about the problem you're trying to solve. Is
And
that
clear.
correct?
And clear, because you can be passionate for 5 minutes and you
That's
tune
true.
people out.
Isn't that the truth? Okay, so let's just recap a little bit. I love the idea of starting small with small ideas and kind of building a house before the university or the schoolhouse before the university. Knowing your problem very well and observing it and then getting the research on that and then putting together an action plan, knowing who your audience is and making sure that you're speaking to them and potentially the people that they have to speak to. So it's not just in a vacuum. You have to understand that everyone reports to somebody at the end of the day, and then making sure that your solution is presented clearly so it's easy to understand and easy to take action upon. What am I missing in that?
The who?
Okay,
I mean,
let's
to
talk more
me,
about
it's
the
like,
who.
so we mentioned the movie, we mentioned Pepsi and the
Mhm.
Flaming Hot brand. The movie is called Flaming Hot on Hulu, so you can really see how this whole thing transpires. But I say the who is because the who does not have to be somebody who already is in leadership. It can be anyone in the organization. It could even be a third-party vendor that comes through. But right now we're talking about corporate intrapreneurship. So really, if you are somebody that's been in the company for a long time, 30 years, you have the expertise that a lot of people don't have. You've got that inside track. This is a great time for you to bring forth new ideas. Whether or not you are a manager or, again, somebody on the front line who feels like they're so far away from the C-suite, the who is important because everyone's got something to offer.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk a little bit about risk. So entrepreneurship is about managing risk. It's about finding opportunities in the market, taking a risk, and hoping that you're going to get financially rewarded for the risk that you're taking. With intrapreneurship, we still need to assess risk. I think that's probably where the research and observing comes from because if we're process improvement, we're looking to reduce expenses and create more time. But how does assessing risk factor itself into classic intrapreneurship?
Everything is a risk at some point, but I guess it's just a level of degrees. So
Mhm.
how do you minimize the risk that somebody could be taking when they say yes to your idea?
Sure. So let's run through our example. Let's say um, I see an opportunity for us to improve a product and maybe add new products to our service line. Now, there's going to be a certain amount of risk with that because we need to create the marketing materials, we need to do all the training, we need to push it out into the market, right? It may or may not work. Just because I have a hunch about this and I want to push it forward doesn't mean it's going to work, right? That's classic entrepreneurship. So as an entrepreneur, as an employee, maybe a few levels down who's never had any experience with entrepreneurship, should I be afraid of risk or should I just put my idea out there?
Okay, it's cool that you bring this up because we've been talking about entrepreneurship and there are so many levels to it. Entrepreneur could just be pitching an idea to how the team can save time by using Excel differently. Or it
Mhm.
could be big ideas such as how do we now add this new division? Or it could be somewhere in the middle, which is how do we add this product or service, which is what you just asked about. So with anything, especially depending on how big the company is, it's focus group is the word that comes to mind, but is finding out, is there a demand for it? And there's several ways to do that. And again, with the large company, they already have those things in place. But let me highlight what came out of the story with the Flaming Hot. So you had the, and I'll just paraphrase it. You had the janitor who said, okay, he was looking around. He observed at a cookout that he's from Mexico, that a lot of Mexicans were liking the spicy snacks, right? So he said, this does not exist. They're not talking to us. They're not offering enough spicy snacks to us. So what if we were to add this kind of spice to, I'm trying to think. I think it was Frito. No, I think it was Cheetos. That was the
Cheetos.
original one. So Cheetos is just cheats, right? So let's just kick it up a level and let's make it spicy. So that's what he was bringing to the table. So in terms of a new product, it wasn't that big of a stretch. It was just a variation of it. And that might be something that's the entry point in terms of offering a variation to what already exists. Chobani, which to me started off with offering products that seemed opposite. Now I kind of bring those together, at least in my mind. So they started off with yogurt and was killing it and still are in the yogurt market. But then they also offered oat milk. And it just seemed different because so you had the dairy product and the non-dairy product. And I think there was something else that they offered because those actually, now I see it coming together. Maybe at the time I didn't see it. But to me, that's a brand that had two really different types of products that came together. So maybe you have somebody at that level that's willing to put money behind both of them. But I'd say overall, a lot of research goes into anything that's going to be pushed out, that's going to take millions of dollars to do. Think about a movie. You've got two different schools of thought for producers, because I like to read autobiographies and biographies. So one of them is that the head of Paramount, Sherry Lansing, she would have a lot of focus groups. They would have test screenings. Whereas you had Steven Spielberg, who would put this in front of his friends who are also incredibly successful directors. So it's just a matter of how you are approaching your the research.
We can agree that entrepreneurship at any level is a value add. And the way that a business gets there, the way that an organization gets there may vary. There may be differences and nuances. They may do their Shark Tank pitches. It may be more structured or it may be less structured. But one thing is certain is getting the knowledge bank, the intellectual capital that already exists within an organization, getting those ideals to bubble up, getting those dormant, latent potential ideas that could be worth millions of dollars is a good practice. But let's talk about smaller businesses, mom and pop businesses. Most of the businesses in America are small business. Many of them family-owned businesses, maybe they got 50 or less employees, makes up millions of businesses in the country. How do they approach entrepreneurship? Is it the same approach, or would you say it's different for smaller businesses with less resources and less teams?
Well, when you're a small business, like 10 people or so, everyone's an entrepreneur. Everyone's doing every job that comes up. So as we get larger, like 50 to 100 to 500 employees, that's where entrepreneurship can really come in, because you're asking people to buy in. Think about the employee stock option plan right now, which allows employees to be owners of companies. If you are asking them to be an owner in the sense of share your ideas, they're going to be so much more committed to making success happen. Okay, so intrapreneurship at all levels is important, but especially at those smaller companies, you can implement the same idea and structure. And if anything, you've got more flexibility over that in terms of what this looks like. So a question you would ask is like, how do they bring it in? So it could be a monthly or a quarterly event, or it could just be empowering your managers to say, you guys host this. We don't have to have this big production. You host this and have people come forward with it. But the key thing here is to have it be structured. It's not going to help you that much, in my opinion, just to have a suggestion box, whether or not it's digital or it's traditional, because one, it gets caught up. People get caught up in their day to day. So you often lose it. But two, you lose the momentum. That's a word you used earlier. If you're able to have a structured format where you're teaching people how to present their ideas, and then you have a forum to hear it, the buzz is going to get around and other people are going to want to do it and participate next time. And then it makes it bigger. And then you just never know, whether or not the next $1 billion idea is going to come forward, or just an idea of, how to make the customers happier.
Yeah, I agree with you on the smaller business that most employees in small businesses are entrepreneurs just by showing up in the morning, because things move really, really fast and you have to make really quick decisions. You're very nimble. And I would also agree that I know in my career with the companies that I've worked with that have had thousands of employees or even multiple hundred employees, there's a lot of status quo. So you're just constantly managing this inertia and the status quo-ness that's been built up, and things move very, very slowly. So I think it's very important for those organizations to have that internal innovation to kind of propel them forward. The last thing I really want to touch upon, and I love touching upon this, which is, what is the dark side of entrepreneurship? Where are the landmines? What should we be prepared for when it comes to how these types of programs could blow up if they're not appropriately managed?
Hurt feelings is the first thing that comes to mind. People feeling like they didn't use my idea, I'm gonna take it to so and so. It's just the idea of making it constructive, that
Yeah.
this may not be the best time to implement this, or more than likely, if you did not come prepared to present, that's when ideas are not accepted. As an individual, you can use intrapreneurship to advance your career. So think about if you had the mindset of an entrepreneur and you said, you know what, I see a problem, this is how we can solve it, and let me present it. That's going to make you stand out from everyone else who's just doing what they're being told to do. I know when I worked at a corporate job many years ago, I was a software trainer, so Microsoft Office initially, but then I would learn software packages pretty quickly and train others on it. And I worked for an insurance company. And at the time, I'm like, this is their company. I'm just here, even though I'm a full-time employee, I'm just here doing this training part of it. I had no interest in learning about the industry or really seeing myself as part of the mission, the vision, everything that they talked about at the annual meetings. Imagine if they had reached out to me with their words by saying how you are part of this. I remember hearing those words at annual events, but not really feeling it. And that's where an entrepreneurship program like this, where people can actually experience it and know that their ideas are being listened to, that can make a huge difference. So the question was like, in terms of walking away from listening to this, that as an individual, taking that entrepreneurship step can help advance your career. As a leader, saying okay to enterprise-wide entrepreneurship programs can only help you discover cost savings and ways to move forward.
I can see no reason why a leader of an organization wouldn't take you up on that piece of advice. So, if there are leaders of organizations out there that are curious about this and they need support, specifically your support, how does someone get involved with Melanie Rae? How does someone work with you?
The best way is to go to a website, brgworkshops.com, brgworkshops.com, which stands for Business Resource Groups. Initially, I came up with the idea of approaching employee resource groups and business resource groups to equip them with the structure of how to present their ideas in 60 seconds. I figured these are opportunities for people from different backgrounds and different departments within an organization to come together in a real casual environment and be able to share ideas and work together on presentation skills, cost savings discovery, and really talking about the organization overall as if it's their own business. So the website is brgworkshops.com, and what we offer is a 60-minute workshop offered virtually for different topics. So like if you wanted to ask your employees to find time savers, we're going to specifically talk about how to find and present time-saving ideas. If you want to have technical people be able to pitch their ideas to non-technical people, we have variations for that. So we have at least 7 variations, like how to turn complaints into solutions, or how to introduce a new vendor to a particular business unit. So
I love it.
brgworkshops.com, find out how to offer a 60-minute workshop to teach your employees how to present their ideas in 60 seconds.
Well, Melanie, I always appreciate our conversations. And as long as I've known you, which is quite some time now, you've always had the heart of helping business owners and entrepreneurs and leaders make progress and do it in a very structured, refined manner that makes it easy for them. So if you're out there, I highly recommend contacting Melanie and working with her. Thanks again, Melanie. It's a pleasure to have you. Thanks for joining the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.